Hey everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Ryan Pugatch. I'm the VP of Product at DoIT. In my past lives, I was on the other side of the table. I built out the global IT team at TripAdvisor and took some journeys through e-commerce and through media before landing at Ernst & Young, where I was working on their EY Fabric technology platform and including building FinOps tools into that platform and trying to drive the FinOps framework throughout EY.
And I'm Sebastian Amrogowicz. I'm the lead architect for our DoIT Cloud Intelligence platform. I'm the head of our platform engineering and DevOps efforts. And before that, I worked as a staff engineer in Cloud Health when I started with my FinOps journey.
So, a little bit about DoIT. Founded in 2011, we have a FinOps certified platform called DoIT Cloud Intelligence. And really what our platform does is it helps solve the problem of, we all know that insights and visibility simply isn't enough to solve the problems and the challenges that exist in the modern cloud era. And our platform was built bottom up to do that. And one of the most important defining features is that we bring your context to it. So it's not generic insights, it's not generic noise, it's not just a bunch of reports, but we help you connect all the dots. And the most important thing is we help you turn all of those insights into action, which really is like the constant challenge in every organization that I talk to. My own experience in my past lives, it's turning things into action, it's executing, and it's making sure that we get the most value out of our cloud. And so happy to tell you a little bit more through the lens of Kubernetes. So, why are we here today? Well, we're here to help you solve the puzzle of Kubernetes, particularly through the lens of day two operations. And day two operations is kind of like after you go ahead, you get everything up, you're running, you're rocking and rolling, and then day two comes and you're like, okay, how do I keep things running? How do I keep things resilient? How do I make sure that I'm cost effective? And we're gonna take you through that journey through a few different areas. One is understanding workload rightsizing and how important that is. We'll also help you understand how to establish a framework for ongoing optimization. And then we'll talk more about driving alignment and governance and how automation fits into the picture. So before we jump into that, I wanna go on a little bit of a nostalgia trip. If you've been around in this space for a while, even before we called it FinOps, we were in the physical era. We had physical data centers. We were worried about physical capacity planning and hardware procurement times and all that fun stuff. But we knew that like this set of servers here is doing this thing, whatever it is for that application and whatnot. And we could do our fuzzy CapEx accounting and things were okay. But then we said, all right, let's do visualization or virtualization. Well, what happened with virtualization? We lost some of that context because we abstracted everything up. And so now we are worrying about how do we balance our hypervisors? How do we understand our growth forecast and our resource demand? And how are we connecting all of this hardware cost to VMs to the different costs of our applications? And how am I like managing over subscription of resources? So we chipped away at that, and then we moved into the cloud era. And in the cloud era, we started trading CapEx for OpEx, and we had the same problem again. We abstracted up another level, we lost that visibility, and we had to go and try to claim it back. Also, while trying to balance on-demand, reserve, spot instances, trying to figure out how we benefit from auto-scaling, and then worrying about like how do we do tagging and allocating. And we did that, right? We've probably all done that. We have tooling and so on. And now we're in the containerization era. And what did we do? We abstracted things up yet again. And now we're struggling to say what is actually going on in our containers. And we're worrying about how do we apply scaling in that world? How do we deal with the overhead of my Kubernetes cluster? How do I deal with my complex microservices proliferating and how they all connect and like how are they delivering business value? And again, that's kind of where we are. And so now we're jumping in, how do we solve that puzzle? So as we're jumping into Kubernetes, I wanna take you through this journey through the lens of one of our customers, Trax. So Trax is a leader in the retail management space. And they do a lot of really cool AI and machine learning and computer vision. They do like crazy stuff, like they can look at a shelf in a supermarket and help provide insights on how to optimize, like really, really cool stuff. And of course, they've been chipping away at their FinOps journey and making some progress, but their workloads really run on Kubernetes. And there's a direct correlation between what they're doing for their customers and the cost in the cloud. And they have a business metric for that. They call it like cost per processing. And so they're trying to understand what is their cost per processing to make sure they're not underwater on the services that they're delivering to their customers. And so what we'll do is we'll kind of take you through some of the challenges in Kubernetes, how you solve them, and in particular, how did Trax solve that to end up, working with us to save 75% of cost in their environment while also improving the resiliency of their environment.
Okay, so let's look at the Kubernetes architecture. If you simplify this by a bit, the two core components that you may be interested in is control plane, which is the brain behind Kubernetes. And this part is quite often the managed part. This is your EKS, AKS. This is not something that you usually optimize too much, so that can be left alone. The other part is the nodes. Those are the worker machines. Those are your virtual machines that you pay for. This is what usually majority of the spend will be. So this is what you want to optimize. But how do you get there? Well, how much of that capacity you need is really driven by your application, because you need enough of those virtual machines to host all of your applications. So you need to make sure that the applications are asking for what they really need. And how that really works in Kubernetes. So as an application developer, you can specify requests. And requests are basically the needs of your application for CPU and memory. So a developer comes in and says, I need that much CPU and memory, and Kubernetes will just give it to you. The Kubernetes scheduler will not actually check whether you need that or not. It will just allocate that space for you. And importantly, Kubernetes will hold that space whether you're actually using this or not. So if a developer comes in and asks for a lot of CPU and memory, Kubernetes will give it to you, and anything that you don't use will be just waste. So before you go in and can implement any of the right-sizing opportunities you have on your VMs, you need to make sure your applications are properly right-sized. Because if you start cutting down the size of your machines, Kubernetes will still try to ask for those resources, and it will be a loop that you won't win. So why those applications are oversized? Where a lot of developers don't actually know what they need. They start with an application and they don't know how to start determining those resources. Or maybe they just copy-pasted a template and they went with this. So the lack of visibility means we put numbers there, and as long as it works, it often stays. The other part is kind of making sure your business works. The over-provisioning is a safe thing to do because this ensures performance. This ensures stability of your application. Kubernetes may terminate your applications if you're trying to use a lot more than you're asking for. So it's very safe to put more because then you're not woken up. So as a developer, you don't have a reason to go and try to really set this correctly. The other part is just not reevaluating this. The applications change constantly. Like many companies have multiple deployments every day, the application changes. You can't be sitting around and just checking this because every new revision may have different needs out there. So a lot of this is just over provision and it just stays there. And Datadog estimates that 80% of cluster resources are idle, 80%. So that gives us a lot of space to optimize, but we need to make sure we optimize our application first.
And this is important because, Trax has a really amazing engineering team, super, super smart. I mean, they're at the cutting edge of computer vision and AI in their space, yet they were still falling into these challenges even though they have like an amazing team.
So automation is really the way to go, and Kubernetes comes up with some of the solutions for this. So a lot of people will know the horizontal port autoscaling or the Kubernetes event-driven autoscaler. So those are the automation solutions that are more popular, but they scale the number of applications, the number of instances of your applications. So this will be how many of those you need and can really be something handy for you to drive the needs of your application based on customer request. The vertical pod autoscaler is the newer solution that's still more developed. And this is the one that helps you size your applications correctly. So this is the one that will allow you to pick the correct requests for your applications to make sure that you're only using what you need, but also to make sure that you have proper resiliency and performance for your application. And this is the space where third-party tools are currently shining best.
Yeah. Yeah, and for Trax, they had been trying to do this. They certainly, were trying to do vertical scaling and whatnot. And what they found was just, it wasn't enough, and it was creating more noise and chaos than it was solving. And that was kind of one of the roadblocks that they just kept hitting as they were trying to optimize their Kubernetes infrastructure. So we've talked about all the challenges and the issues and so on. So what do you do about it? Well, the first thing is you have to map out your world. You need to understand the context of your environment. And speaking of Trax, like that was exactly their challenge. Things got abstracted away into Kubernetes, and they didn't know, like, where are my workloads? What are they costing? How do I connect this to my business value and so on? And so being able to visualize it, and you can see in the screenshot as an example of our cloud diagrams capability in the DoIT Cloud Intelligence platform, on demand, automatically, you can have a visualization of all of your cloud infrastructure, including your Kubernetes clusters, all the way up to, understanding your workload level, seeing how it all connects. You need to really have that foundation. If you don't have that foundation, then you're going to struggle to make efficient and good decisions. And really connecting those applications to the underlying clusters and infrastructure, it's really just a necessity for you to be able to optimize your environment. The next, of course, is bringing cost visibility to stakeholders. I mean, it's a foundation of the FinOps framework. We all know it. We all know about the importance of that cost visibility and how it pertains to making better decisions and having accountability. And then the other part of it, of course, was for Trax, connecting that visibility to that business metric of cost per processing. And by being able to bring that visibility all the way to the different people involved in decisions, but then connecting it to the business metric, then you're able to have some really good conversations about, well, what is it costing us to do this service for our customer? And you can optimize accordingly, and you can understand the impacts of what's happening in your application. For example, for them, they'll have a customer come in, load a ton of data, and they'll see a big spike, right? And so being able to contextualize that and understand that, super, super important. Now, so you've gone through, you have more visibility, and you're trying to optimize. And now for Trax, they got the visibility. They were trying to make the right decisions to continuously optimize. But really what happened with that is just they couldn't keep up. It just, the amount of effort to do the analysis, to look at the dynamic nature of their environment and make decisions, what that means is you're just constantly making decisions on what you know right now, and then an hour later it could be completely different. And what does that result in? Well, that either results in you over-allocating and thus overspending, or potentially under-allocating and then running into application problems, performance issues, or so on. And in many cases, what we see with customers is once we bring the visibility, we actually find out that both is happening, right? They're both overspending, but then in the areas that they need more resources, they're falling over. So automation does play an important part of that process. You can see an example here. This is our Cloudflow capability. And, even outside of Kubernetes, being able to take the path down to automation. And I know everyone has their existing processes and workflows and so on. And so what you need to do is first understand what's going on in your environment. What are the opportunities? How long does it take me to resolve something? We see a spike here. We know that we're burning money. How long does it take you to then get to resolution? Oh, it took 3 months to resolve. We just lost $80,000. Now we can have the conversation to say, how do we shrink that window? by the way, the answer ultimately will be automation. Now, Sebastian said, right-size your apps, then your instances, and talked about how important that is. And maybe somewhere around here, Amir is from our perfect scale team. He might be hiding somewhere, or I might be blinded by the light. But when I was going over the slide with him, he's like, make sure they know that they have to do it in an automated fashion. It's the only way to balance the cost and resilience. And he's totally right. And so as Trax was going through their journey, they got more visibility and that understanding. They were trying to manually keep up. And then what they were able to do using our perfect scale technology was to be able to align the supply and the demand, so their application demand and the supply of Kubernetes resources. And what they learned is like being able to automate that meant that we were always being able to match that. And we have the ability to kind of set our thresholds. How much buffer do we want to have in that, to kind of mitigate our risk? But you're really starting to have a conversation around, how do I get the most cost benefit from this while making sure that I'm not running out of memory or I'm not slowing down my application and so on. So just automation super, super critical. So beyond the automation stuff, I know that this can feel overwhelming. Adding all of these additional layers, trying to understand all of these concepts. As Sebastian said, even the smartest technical people have those challenges as well. So, but just remember, we've done this before. We've been through this. We dealt with the data center shift to virtualization. We moved to the cloud. We continue to cut through that opaqueness. And then we are now in the containerization era. And there's so many incredible, amazing benefits that you can get from that, from Kubernetes. For Trax, it was just like instrumental in their ability to deliver their service in the flexible way that they do and to scale accordingly. But they had to do the work to break through the opaqueness, and they had to go on that journey to be able to adapt and understand how the workload connected to the infrastructure and the cost, and understand cost versus resilience and performance. And ultimately, by breaking through all of that, they were able to understand their business metric, cost per processing, but they were also able to reduce the cost of their Kubernetes infrastructure by 75% because they got the visibility, they took action, and then they automated it away. So, anything you want to add?
No.
Cool. All right. I guess I hit everything. Cool. So, would love to continue the conversation. If you want to talk, not even about our platform, but just want to talk about Kubernetes, ask questions, try to scratch the surface and whatnot, we'd love to talk to you. We have some of our technical experts kicking around our booth, as well as myself and Sebastian. So, would love to see you at our booth. Would love to tell you everything about Kubernetes. Would love to see if we could help you. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thank you so much for watching and for your support. For more FinOps X 2025 content, go check out our YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and leave comments and questions for all of our wonderful speakers. We appreciate your support.